I'm super happy to be here, guys. I'm super happy that we have not enough chairs, because we were, I would say, we were realistic, saying if we have 250 approved participants, maybe we will have 50 of you. There's 56 chairs in this room, and some of you are standing. Sorry for that, but at the same time, I'm super happy. So let's talk about CSM version 2. You've heard about it. I told you multiple times, hey, go read this paper or go read this writing or watch these slides, but maybe some of the aspects are still not clear, so I will try to do my best to unpack them all together with Sasha, who will tell you more about a different aspect of CSM which does not live on chain, but more on that later. Now let's talk about CSM, which is, this wonderful graphics. Yes, so before we start with CSM version 2, what we have in CSM today, as Will mentioned, lots and lots and lots of numbers, but the things that I'm particularly proud of is our average 30-day performance. As you can see, it is 0.03 or 0.04, depending on the day, below network average. And we all know that Ethereum network is mostly, I believe 90% of the Ethereum network, validators in absolute numbers, or ETH staked, you call it whatever you want, is operated by professional operators who are working their ass out to get the best performance. And now in CSM, where you guys, and I am as well, we are validating from home, from our home machines, we're able to keep on with the network performance. That's absolutely insane. And by the way, we have a lot of node operators, validators, and the CSM share will be increased soon, so you will not see this depositable queue for a very long time. Now let's talk about CSM v2, because CSM v2 is about to change many things, and it's about to change many things in favor of you guys, in favor of home stakers first place. The first thing that I want to talk with you about is the soul of CSM version 2, its node operator types. It might be slightly confusing to understand what node operator type is, but essentially, this is nothing more than a set of parameters that lives on chain. And since you can have a lot of different node operator types, you can serve each particular type of operator of a person or entity sitting behind the nodes, behind the validators, to offer them the best conditions suited. And for us, since CSM, again, one can read from the name, it's a community staking module. We want to favor community stakers compared to all others. So for community stakers, we will have this identified community staker type. Not all of the values are finally aligned, so it's more of a preliminary thing, and that's why they're so low that you cannot read them right now, but that's not the main topic. The main thing is to understand how it would work and how it's different from what we have in CSM version 1. So in CSM version 1, when you've entered, and when you enter CSM even now, basically the module or UI checks if you are eligible to join as an early adopter, and if you are, you will be joined as early adopter. If you are not, you will join as a permissionless operator. And the only difference between this two entry paths is bond. So if you are early adopter, you will get reduced bond for the first validator. If you are not, you will not get reduced bond for the validator. The rest of the parameters are absolutely identical, so no difference. And that creates a bit of a problem here, because okay, well, is it enough to just get this small discount for the first validator if you are really validating from home? I'm not sure about that. That's why in CSM version 2, we will have at least 3 node operator types to start with. The first one is permissionless, then legacy EA, and then ICS. And the difference between these node operator types would be as follows. So permissionless node operator would have default parameters and the default bond curve. So it will be basically identical to what we have right now as a permissionless node operator type. Legacy early adoption will be an evolution of the current EA operator with the same default parameters, but with the reduced bond. And identified community stakers will not just get reduced bond, but will also get a custom set of parameters that you might have seen on the previous slides, meaning that it will be super beneficial for individuals to just say, yes, I am individual. Please take a look at these 3 addresses. These are my 3 addresses. Check that I'm individual and give me these good conditions. Because professional operators, they would not be able to do that. And why do we need node operator types? Because we can have more of them. It's not just 3, it will be 3 to start with, But in future, we can have DVT node operator types. We can professional node operator types, or whatever other node operator types we want to have in CSM, we can have them with version 2. And this is all because, again, as I mentioned, all of the entities, people behind these node operators, they are different, and they should be treated differently. Moving up next, we can do a quick summary here. Well, basically, node operator type can be changed. It's not a thing that you get once in your life, and it allows for all of this customizability. The next thing is a shell of CSM version 2. It is concept of gates and extensions. About a year ago, I've created this abomination. That was my idea when I was thinking, how can we extend CSM beyond what we have by default? And I was particularly thinking about DVT, as you can see. And that's not an appropriate way of thinking about it. Luckily, we were able to simplify this to 2 separate diagrams. So the first one, entry gate. What's entry gate? Entry gate is that simple. It's a contract that allow users to join CSM with specific conditions, or maybe without specific conditions, like in a permissionless gate, for example. But the main idea is that user only needs to interact with entry gate when creating node operator. The rest of the interactions are done directly with CSM. So that's why it's called entry gate. You only enter through it, and then you leave with CSM in the same way you do right now. Extension is a bit more complicated, and at the same time, way more flexible thing. With the extension to CSM, user not only create a node operator using this separate contract, but also interact with CSM using this separate contract. And you might ask, okay, why the hell on earth do we need it? I would tell you that we have tons of complexities if we are not talking about running vanilla validators. If you want to run some sort of a DVT or some sort of a sidecar or some sort of a complicated setup with your friends, you will need to attach multisigs, splitters, whatever shit of a complexity you want to attach. And with the extensions, it all can be packed into a single contract that would facilitate all of the process for you. So, for example, cluster formation might now be done on-chain and not off-chain. There might be no need for additional multisig or additional splitter and whatsoever. So an extension is basically an extension of functionality of CSM. And these 2 concepts, that's what we like to have in terms of modularity of CSM, in terms of options to integrate CSM with the other stuff. Next thing, armor of CSM version 2, performance oracle. Right now, in CSM version 1, your performance is basically your attestation rate. So you take the number of attestations you haven't missed, you divide them by number of attestations assigned to your validators, boom, you have performance. Is it good? Yeah, it's good. It's a good proxy to tell how long your validator has been online and how long your validator has been offline. But validating Ethereum is not just about being online or offline. It's also about performing other duties, like block proposals or sync committee participation. And if we will look at the breakdown of Ethereum validator rewards, we will understand that both of those things, they do contribute to rewards. And if you specifically miss a block, even though the overall long-term contribution of a block is not that significant to the rewards of your validator, at this specific moment when you miss a block, it might be painful. So that's why in CSM version 2, Oracle will now account for all of these 3 duties, and then all of these 3 effectiveness will be multiplied by corresponding coefficients to get your overall performance. So, for example, in CSM v2, even though your attestation rate might be good, but if you are missing block proposals, you might drop below the performance threshold just because you're not doing well. Come on, you should not miss proposals. But you know what? It is the default conditions for permissionless actors. But we know about our actors, right? We know about identified community stakers, so why not to give them an edge here? And an edge here might be a custom coefficient for block proposals. So instead of weighting the block proposal efficiency high as for permissionless operators and as the default parameters of Ethereum network tell us, we can reduce this coefficient so that if you've missed 1 out of 2 blocks, say, you wouldn't go below performance threshold in this particular example. The other cool thing is that if we account for block proposals and sync committee right now, even if your attestation rate for some reason went down, so you've been offline, say, for 2 days, and it might be like slightly below performance threshold currently in CSM, but for the other 26 days, you've been performing great, and you never missed a block proposal, and you never missed a sync committee vote, or missed like a couple of them, your overall performance will be above the threshold. So, to summarize, updated performance oracle is now way more precise, but it's still forgiving, because we still have this concept of a performance threshold in place. And performance threshold can also be customizable per node operator type. So for example, identified community stakers will keep this 5% performance threshold, so you can drop up to 5% below average network performance and still get rewards for the first 150 validators, while for permissionless participants, the threshold will be not 5, but 3%, which is slightly more tight, but again, we know nothing about permissionless participants, so get identified and get this benefit. Next, guard of CSM version 2, performance strikes. The concept of performance strikes is super simple. Your validator performs bad within a frame, you not just miss rewards from CSM, but you also get a strike. If you get more than X strikes, your validator is ejected. And at this moment, you are all might be scared, but there's actually not that much to be scared. Let's break it down. First of all, strikes do not live forever. There is a so-called concept of forgiveness. So there's a parameter called lifetime, and on this wonderful GIF that one of my teammates created, we see that in this example, the lifetime is 3 frames, 3 performance oracle frames. In reality, I believe it would be 6. But anyway, for understanding, it's easier. So if you got a strike in frame 1, and now we are in the frame 4, it means that strike from frame 1 will no longer be accounted for, which basically means that if for some reason you faced an issue with the performance, like some unfortunate conditions like we had in Spain with this blackout, but then for the next 6 months you've been performing great, your strike for this month will be forgiven, and no one would ever remember about that. So strikes are only dangerous for those who are systematically bad performing. If it was just an occasional fluke or just an occasional situation, no problem at all. Next thing, strikes are not assigned per node operator, but they are assigned per keys. So imagine we have a node operator number XX with this beautiful 7 keys. And out of these 7 keys, for some weird reason, are evenly distributed between different setups, and key 2 is constantly slacking. And it's constantly slacking, getting strikes. So what's going to happen? Key 2 is going to be ejected, while the rest of the keys will remain untouched if they are performing fine. So if, for example, you have several setups for your home node, I don't know why, but I do have 2 nodes, for example. I believe some of you might also have several setups. And if only one of them facing issues, then the other one would not be affected with this system at all. And to learn how to deal with the strikes, let's look at the simple example. So you get notified by CSM Sentinel, by CSM UI, that you got a strike for some reason. Plan of action is that simple. You check your nodes, you fix your nodes, you're happy. That's what you should do. Let's take a look at the other situation. You see that you got a strike. You do absolutely nothing about that. You get more strikes. Well, in this case, sorry, but you're going to get a kick in the butt and get ejected from CSM, and moreover, a penalty will be applied. So make sure not to get consistent strikes. So if you got a strike for some reason, just check your nodes, check your connection, so that we will all live in this good scenario. It will be good for the protocol, it will be good for you, and remember, 1 strike or 2 strikes does not mean penalty. Penalty is only applied when you got 3 or more strikes, depending on the strikes threshold, and you actually got ejected. So you have plenty of time to either fix your nodes or decide that, okay, maybe my internet connection got that bad that I'm no longer capable of running validators. Perfect, just exit them voluntary, and you will not get any penalty for strikes at least. Next up, energy of CSM version 2, priority queues. And here I want to start with a quote of a person who's definitely in the room. Max, where are you? Where's Max? Here's Max. He's he's very shy, standing nearby the wall. So what he said, and that's literally what he said to me in Bangkok last year, that there should always be a place for home stakers in CSM. He specifically said CSM v2. I'm sorry I missed that here. And literally in 15 minutes after that, we came up with this picture. So that's the picture of priority queues. Let me quickly explain how it works. We have a bunch of different queues. Each of them are similar to what we have right now, so it's a first in, first out queue. And identified community stakers all get a limited amount of so-called tickets to the priority queue. Specifically speaking, right now we are considering value of 10 priority queue tickets. Now let's figure out how they are assigned and why do we even need these tickets. Well, we need these tickets because all of the other operators, and your keys as well, which do not have tickets, will go in the default queue, which is similar to what we have right now. So how to figure out how many tickets would you have, depending on if you're a new node operator or if you are already an operator. If you are a new node operator and you get identified as community staker from the very beginning, you can be confident that you will get 10 tickets. So 10 of your keys will be able to get deposits through the priority queue, which means that you will only face competition with the other identified community stakers, each having 10 keys maximum. If you are already in CSM and you have a certain amount of deposited keys, say 5, it means that you have only 5 priority queue tickets left, because the idea of the priority queue is not to give an infinite edge to identified community stakers compared to the other operators so that the system would be hacked and people would pretend to be identified community stakers. No, but to provide a very fast and easy onboarding path for new operators. Yeah, and as I said, up to 10 keys with this weird mechanism. First in, first out, and we have spare priorities for the future node operator types, as I mentioned, DVT or whatsoever to come. Probably the last significant feature that I want to tell you about is power of CSM version 2 is EIP 7002. And you might be asking, why do you even want to talk with us about 7002? 7002 is for the protocols to eject bad performance. And you are right, but not fully. Because the first use case for 7002 is actually for you guys, for us, for node operators. And it's very simple. Imagine you are facing some problems with your validators. Imagine you've just discovered that, I don't know, your friend got access to your dApp node and for some reason made a copy of this dApp node or whatever else happened. I don't know. Anything crazy might happen. And for some reason, you do not have a VPN access to your node, so you do not have VPN access to your keys. Your seed phrase is hidden underground somewhere in your backyard and you are in the other part of the world. And you need to do a very emergency measure. You need to quickly exit your validators. Or you even lost your keys and you still need to quickly exit your validators. Well, now you will be able to do that with no validator keys involved whatsoever. You will just make a call to CSM contract saying, hey, I am the owner of this node operator. These are my keys. Can you please eject them? And CSM will use EIP 7002 to perform ejection on your behalf. The other case, for sure, as I've mentioned, and what we've talked about, is ejection due to strikes. So should your validators misbehave, and should the conditions be met, should enough strikes be gathered, your validators will also be exited. And the third case, which I don't have diagram for, is actually delayed validators. So as you know, when you've joined CSM, you accepted this policy of validator exits. So if Lido protocol needs to cover withdrawals from users, because most of the ETH under your validators in CSM is actually not yours, but it belongs to STETH holders. So should there be significant withdrawals, protocol might request you to exit some of your validators. And if you would reject to do that, EIP 7002 might also be used. For sure, we will have a wonderful UI for that, so you will be able to use this emergency ejection feature right on our UI, as well as all of the other features you will be able to see, to use, to navigate, thanks to Sasha and our UI development team. And yeah, that's pretty much it about 7002. And the last question that you might ask, what about 7251 or this MaxiB or this compounding validators, and would we see them in CSM or not? A short answer is we will see them, but in CSM version 3. Let me quickly explain why. This is not a Even though this topic might seem a no-brainer for solo staker, well, if you have your solo validators, just consolidate them or convert them to 0x02, and, well, super cool, balance is compounding, boom. But with CSM, there are many complexities to be solved. What to do, like if we allow, for example, to convert validators from OX1 to OX2, their balance would increase, while their bond will be still limited to a fixed amount. So how would we overcome that? How we ensure that a sufficient coverage is always present? If we allow for creating of large validators, would there be a significant demand? Because we will have to increase bond 64 times, and it will be 64 ETH to create a large validator with the current ratio of bond to stake in CSM. So there are a lot of things to be answered, but I promise we will answer them all, and you will learn more about that. And CSM v3, you will see max support for max effective balance. And now, we've talked a lot about identified community stakers. We've mentioned that a lot of times, and I told you that you can pass the identification process. But now I want to pass the mic to Sasha, who will tell you more about how this process might look like and would mostly look like, and even give you a bit of examples. Sasha, please welcome.